Bitcoin finally broke out of its range late last night, and we did see a pretty significant surge to the upside, tapping back up into the higher $44,000 range. At the point of recording, we are, of course, just tapping up into this higher range at $44,718. So in today's video, guys, we are going to be jumping into the technical analysis, sharing my thoughts and opinions on what I think is likely to happen next. Now we have seen this break to the upside. Let's roll that intro and get right down into it. Okay, guys, so here we have Bitcoin paired up with USDT. We're on the 1 hour Binance chart here. And as you can kind of see, we've had this great breakout to the upside. Broke through our trend line and also through this yellow box area at 43,505 to 44,029. I initially thought that this range here was going to act as resistance and we were going to kind of get rejected here briefly, retest on the trend line, then break up. But actually what happened here is we just chewed through all of those sell orders that we had seen in this range at the $43,500 to $44,000 range. As I was kind of talking about and expecting yesterday, with the amount of times that we tapped into this range, there wasn't going to be overly too problematic for us to kind of move on through. You can see here that we tapped into it, brief rejection, back down onto our trend line and then launched. Okay, so very much aligned to our expectations, but I was expecting us to kind of consolidate down for a little bit longer. With that said, though, it's great to see that the price action has moved up to our upper target range. This was 44,675 to 45,537 on the hourly chart. We will take a look at the daily time frame in a moment, and we'll kind of review what is going on there so we can get a bit of an idea as to kind of where things are likely to go. Now, on the 1 hour time frame, our stochastic RSI is correcting back down as price is pushing up. So I do think we still have more to the upside to go before we see that inevitable reversal in the market. On that note, we can see that our stochastic RSIs are overbought on the monthly, daily, 4 hour and 8 hour timeframes. So we are looking for a big shift back to the downside. But it's good to see that we finally have kind of had this breakout to the upside as we've been talking about for a while. I didn't think it was going to happen. At one point, I thought this area of rejection around $43,000 was going to basically prevent us from moving up towards $44,000, $45,000 and even potentially $46,000. But it's good to see that we have been able to get through that resistance and push up into that slightly higher range. Our 200 hourly EMA is actually currently only $43,000. So we have some pretty good area of support to be found on our 200 hourly EMA. With the 50 EMA being the red line and the 50 SMA being the yellow lines, they're also coming in at 43,635 on the EMA and 43,439 on the SMA. Basically, this shows us that actually, price action's above the moving averages, and that gives us a little bit more confidence in being more bullish on the short time frame that is the 1 hour. So for the most part, looking pretty good. Now, if I go ahead and take off the stochastics and throw on the divergences, you can see just as we had this little low point down here on the 7th of February yesterday, we had hidden bullish divergence, and we can start to see a little bit of a lift to the upside. Now, we were thinking yesterday at the point of recording yesterday's video that maybe this little push to the upside was all that was going to happen here. We saw the rejection and it looked like the hidden bullish divergence was basically done, but clearly not, and we lifted up. The RSI now on the 1 hour time frame is up in that overbought area, so again that's going to give us the idea that that things are likely to kind of reverse from this higher range that we find ourselves in. Not necessarily just yet. I do see a little bit more room to the upside beforehand, but I do think we're going to start seeing a bigger corrections to the downside very, very shortly. Okay, so on the 1 hour time frame, things are looking pretty good. Volume wise, we can see that large volume came in, pushed the price up, and that volume has disappeared now. Okay, so again, we can argue, is it just a couple of big players kind of pushing the price of Bitcoin here, and that's it? It's possible. We'll see how that kind of unfolds. I do expect us to start to see bigger moves to the downside. And there's a few fair value gaps as well also on here. Let's go ahead and throw those on as we now took out the fair value gaps. That's not loading. Ooh, it seems to be, there's a problem with smart money concepts at the moment. I'll have to come back to that at a later date and find out what's going on. But I can see that there's going to be fair value gaps in here. And obviously we did take out those ones that we were talking about earlier. Let's bring this up into our daily time frame. Okay, so here we can see this run to the upside. Now our main target range is 44,946 to 45,879. That's this yellow box here. Now we haven't yet hit this one on our daily time frame, meaning that we still have this potential move to the upside still a little bit further. Once we kind of tap into this area, this is where I expect the resistance to be after we broke through the resistance from yesterday. As you can kind of see here, this is the next kind of major peer stop. Now this is on the journey. I don't know if smart money concepts yet will work here. We can see that we've taken out some of the fair value gaps that were there previously. Now there's still one that hasn't been filled, in my opinion. It sits right here, and so we are looking for this overlap and that slightly higher range of $45,600 before that one gets completed out. So I am looking at this move to the upside as incomplete at the moment, and I am looking for this move to continue up into this range where we will get, in my opinion, rejected. Okay, now from that move up there, this will basically allow us to then look at equilibrium and our 200 daily EMA coming in at 36,482 on the EMA front. This is also slap bang inside this fair value gap at 35,735 to 37,653. This is where I am thinking our next big moves are going to be to the downside, but it will take weeks to get there. In my opinion, it won't be a straight drop. I mean, I could be wrong. It could be a straight drop, but I wouldn't expect it to. I'd expect us to kind of find a few areas of support and bounces and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately heading down into this low and losing the low of 38,555. Now, if possible, of course, we just get a double bottom, but I think we have to come down to the fair value gap and test out that 200 daily EMA, which will potentially start to tilt down a little bit or kind of go sideways as we have to take into consideration this downward move from 48k to 38k. Okay, so there's going to be some interesting kind of things going on with Bitcoin on the daily time frame for sure. At the moment, everything's looking pretty good, and we still have a little bit more room to the upside, in my opinion. The stochastic RSI is heavily overbought, but is still in a slightly bullish state, with the yellow stochastic RSI line being above that of the smoothing of K, which is the white line. What that's basically telling us is that momentum is yet to shift down. It did shift down briefly here, as you can kind of see, and then we've crossed back over, and so we come back up into the heavy overbought ranges. We'll look for the cross again, probably a couple of days, and then we'll start to see that momentum shifting back to the downside. From our divergence indicator, if it will load, let's see, can you load? It seems that it does seem that the charts are struggling today. Here we can see that the RSI is lifting up towards overbought. It is still in bullish territory. It is not overbought yet. So we will look at this as still got momentum to the upside, still looking for slightly higher prices before we do start to see some moves to the downside. Now, if I draw a trend line in here, connecting all of the peaks of what we saw previously, we may find the resistance actually coming in here around that kind of 68 level on the RSI. So I potentially doesn't even get into the overbought range before pivoting. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. No divergences being seen. Volume profiles are still low, even though they're quite high on the smaller time frames. On the daily time frames, they're not giving us the idea of bullishness. Here we can see that volumes have been decreasing as price has pushed upwards, and so we had good volume coming in, taking us down into these lows. And as soon as we kind of hit these lows down here, and this is the divergence you can see with the volume profiles, is price has gone up, and whilst price has gone up, volumes have gone down. So we know that there's a lack of appetite to push Bitcoin's price to the upside. Obviously, there's a few maybe players here trying to push the price of Bitcoin up into these kind of ranges to kind of maximize their liquidity grabbing and profits. But ultimately, the volume profiles on the larger time frames are an indication that things are not quite balanced the way that they need to, and I would expect reversal in the market. So keeping a close eye on that as well. I'm not expecting this move to the upside to be too much more before we do see reversal, but I am kind of still talking about us moving up into the range, of course, of 44,946 to 45,879. That is going to be the area of concern where I would be looking to get out of longs and start layering in shorts, in my opinion. But that's all it is, just my opinion. On the weekly time frame, you can see here we're back testing the 702. The weekly close is going to be interesting. Can we get a weekly close above the 702 fib level, that being 44,199? That will be a very bullish thing if you can do, and may be able to rally up Bitcoin's bulls a little bit more. Failure to get close above 44,199 on the weekly time frame will basically just confirm more bearishness and the heavy resistance that is here for Bitcoin, and we will be looking for more moves to the downside. We are overbought on the RSI on the weekly time frame, so that's not looking great. The stochastic, I believe, is oversold. That's not the stochastic. The stochastic is oversold, but will easily move back up into the overbought range, in my opinion, because I do not think there is enough volume to keep pushing the price of Bitcoin to the upside overall. So guys, that is going to wrap up today's video. Why not check out this video right here where I'm discussing what is going on with XRP if you haven't done so already.